Hey guys, how's it doing? My name's Alan, I'm a tutor, and this is definitely not one of my regular tutoring sessions. It's definitely not. It's about something a heck of a lot more important, climate change. So, since it's not a regular tutoring session, I can't wear the shirt anymore, can I? Well, I change shirts a lot with different jobs, so I guess it's time I change, hats, so I guess it's time I change the shirt too. Yeah, you're starting to read it, right? That's what this is about. Why? Because only the president, unfortunately, can make enough changes fast enough in this country, which makes other countries follow our lead because we're all the world leader. I don't want to hear about this Russia-China stuff. We're still the world leader, trust me. Why do you think other countries are copying ultra-right violence right now? Because it's happening here. And well, our friends will copy us because we're the world leader. And with something like this, everybody in the world, all the governments know that it's killing the planet. So even the idiotic countries that are not our friends, they're going to follow it too. They don't want to die either. Anyway, what is it? Well, before I get into that, once again, the reason I'm doing this is that, again, only the president can make these drastic changes and fast enough. Now, the current president, Trump, isn't going to do it, is he? He doesn't care about climate change. He said it many times. He doesn't even believe in it, supposedly. I think he does. He just doesn't want to admit it. Why? Because he has stock in all these companies that make pollution and drill for oil and gas and coal. And he wouldn't make as much money as he is now if he has to fight that stuff. So, luckily, in about a year and a half, we can get rid of him and get somebody in who's going to take care of it. And hopefully that's me. And what is it again? Let's get back to that. Well, this is not the case of a couple of college kids looking outside their dorm and one of them looking out and saying, dude, the weather's changing. And the other guy, where's my hat? Joe, you're right. The weather's changing, Joe. I saw a cloud. It might even rain. The weather is changing, Joe. I don't think it's a case like that. Now we have pretty much every climatologist, top scientist in the world, in every country, not just here. What do they say? They all say the same thing. They say if we don't make drastic changes, drastic, not little tiny pieces of junk, within 10, 12 years, that's it. Forget about stopping it. We can't even slow it down at that point if we don't make drastic changes now. And the guy who's doing this right now isn't going to do it. Like I said, I'll do it. I know how it works. Let's get into it. Well, this is me. We'll get into that a little bit later anyway. And look at this junk. Look at this. There's approximately, I think the number is 10 million factories around the world dumping this junk into our air. 10 million. Cars. If I remember right, I think there's about 2 billion cars doing this, dumping this junk into the air. That's not going to do anything, right? The atmosphere is big, but everything has a limit. We've been dumping this stuff in the air since 1850s, since the Industrial Revolution started. 1.5 centuries. It's not going to change anything, right? That's for later. Okay, this is normal life, right? Going to church, partying, going to the beach, something called work, concerts, sports, going to dinner. It's all normal stuff, right? We want to keep it that way, don't we? Same thing here, right? Babies, kids, school, all normal stuff. We want to keep it that way. What about these guys? They're our friends, right? They depend on us, don't they? They shouldn't have to, but they do. Now these two guys up here are the smartest guys on the planet except for us. Are they going to fix climate change? I don't think so. I don't think they're quite that smart, even though this guy's thinking about it right now. How about these guys? They're not our friends, but they're our neighbors. They live here too, right? We're screwing them up pretty bad too. They're not going to fix climate change either. It's up to us. You know, my mom taught me, and I think your mom taught you, if you make a mess, you clean the doggone mess. These guys can't do it. They don't know how. All right, let's get into it a little bit. What is it? How does it work? Well, again, here's some common forms of evidence. Sea level rise, you've heard this stuff before. Ocean warming, shrinking ice sheets, retreating glaciers, acidification of the ocean, it gets more acidic. Here's some pictures if you could see them. 1875, around the time of the Industrial Revolution again. We started dumping all that junk in the air. And this is only a few years ago. There's a mountain covered with snow and glaciers. Here it is again. Well, the mountain's still there. I don't see any snow. I don't see any glaciers. What do I see? A lake on the bottom. It's not supposed to be that warm over there. Here are some hurricanes. Now, there's always been hurricanes, there's always been tornadoes and earthquakes and blah, blah, blah. But the ones that we're having now are monster size that have never really happened before since people have been around anyway. What happened 2 billion years ago, we don't know. We don't care. We're talking about now. These are monsters. They're not happening more often, but they're bigger. They last longer. They hold more water. They're more intense. Look at the eye of this guy. I think this is Katrina in 2005. I'm not sure. The diameter of that eye is like a third or half the width of Florida. These are monsters. I mean, look at that thing. It covers half the country. Look at over here. You probably can't see it. It's the level of carbon dioxide emissions, again, starting from 1850. The level's like 3,000. Look at the line. It's 30,000 now. It's 10 times what it was. Dumping all that stuff in the air doesn't do anything, right? It's mostly from carbon dioxide. There's other gases too, but mostly carbon dioxide. And here's another problem. Again, acid. You remember this from your science class. The lower the number, the more acidy it gets, the more acidic. That's been going down too. We'll get to that in a minute, why that's bad. Well, here's the food chain and ecosystems. You remember that from science too. All this stuff ends up in here. We can eat any animal in the world. We know how to process it through factories. We can eat them, and we do. Some people eat snakes. Anyway, this stuff, pollution, goes in the animals. That ends up in here too, doesn't it? There's ocean food chains too. It works pretty much the same way. You know how it works. The little guys get eaten by the ones a little bit bigger. They get eaten by the ones a little bit bigger, etc., etc. And these two are connected to each other. Nothing is isolated completely, that's for sure. So if we screw up these little guys, then guess what? Then they have nothing to eat. Then they have nothing to eat. Then we have nothing to eat. That's pretty stupid, isn't it? Okay, here's some climate zones. We've seen these before too. North Pole, South Pole, equator, where it's warm. Now, again, everything is connected. If something happens over here on the ground, well, it's pretty obvious it could affect something over here on the ground. It might take a little while for it to get there, but it'll get there. But again, it's not just the ground. It's the air and the oceans too. If something happens bad in the air right here where I'm breathing, well, the wind comes by, if I was outside the house, and blows it halfway across the planet. Same thing with the oceans. If something happens over here, the waves push it over there. Everything is connected. What's this? It's the moon. What's on the moon? Not much. 3 things, pretty much. Rocks, dust, and dirt. That's it. There's not even any air. You can see right here, the ground is touching space, which means it's touching nothing. Let's do a little experiment here. Now, this is not a real science experiment. Yeah, I have kids. This is just a demo. It's an approximation. This represents sea level, whatever level it's supposed to be. And all that melting ice, glaciers, sea level rising, well, here's an iceberg. You know what was going to happen. It dumps over the side. What does that mean in real life? It dumps over the coastlines and floods the heck out of our cities. Paper towel number 1. Let's do our next demonstration. Yeah, it's store brand. I'm poor, remember. Not that I couldn't afford a can of Coke. This is from the fridge. It approximates, again, the temperature of normal seawater, the temperature it's supposed to be. Now, ocean water has gas dissolved in it. The same gases that are in the air, including, guess what? Oxygen that you and me are breathing right now. And guess what? All the animals that live in the ocean, they breathe oxygen too. It's mixed in the water. Now, it depends on temperature. Let's see what happens. Not much. The gases are still dissolved. Now, in this case, it's carbon dioxide, but if it's oxygen or whatever, it doesn't matter. You remember your chemistry science classes too. The colder it is, the better it stays dissolved. This is simulation number 2 again. Part 2. This one is warm, room temperature. Now, we can't heat it up to normal ocean heated up temperature, which could be 85, 90 degrees. I can't put it outside and bake in the summer sun. It's not summer where I am right now. I can't put it in the microwave. It's metal. And I'm not going to put it in the oven and maybe have it blow up or too hot to handle. So I'm going to shake it just a little bit. The effect is the same as heating it up. And you know what the effect is. And I'm not even going like that. Well, I knew that was going to happen. I'm not going to have a drink right now. Besides, it's store brand. Anyway, what happened? The gases came out because it's too warm. Same thing with here. When we heat up the ocean temperature, it can't hold as much dissolved oxygen, so it comes out of the water. Then what happens to these guys? They can't breathe. They die. They suffocate. Now again, it may not affect all of them the same way, but everything is connected. If it affects this one, they don't have enough air, well then these guys have nothing to eat, and here we go again. The other problem is with acidity. The more acidy the water is, which happens from carbon dioxide, because remember, the air is touching the water too. So some of the air goes in the water. If there's more carbon dioxide in the water because of global warming, because of emissions again, that goes in the water too. It gets dissolved in the water, and what happens? It makes the water more acidic. Living cells can only take a certain range of pH. That's what it's called, acid. A certain range. If it goes too low, guess what happens? They die. So we're killing these guys in 2 ways. One, we're suffocating them to death because the oxygen's coming out of the water because the water is too hot. And 2, we're burning them up with acid. Not literally, but you get the point. And again, these are connected. It affects us. Everything is connected. Next. Well, here's some examples of climate change. You've seen pictures like this before. This is California. This is not even the most recent one. This was half a year before that, which they thought was the worst one until they had their most recent one. You know, I heard a news report a couple of weeks ago. I was actually looking for this info, and I just heard it on the news. The speed of this thing. The most recent one was 14 miles long. That's pretty big. And you know how fast it goes? 70, that's 70 miles an hour. There's no animal that lives in the forest that could outrun that. Nothing can. If you were in your car, you'd have to gun it to get out of the way, and that's if you had a straight line to go 80 miles an hour or 100, and usually you don't. Now, this might not be a real picture, and it may not have happened for real. You know, things can be faked. But, like I said, if it didn't happen to him, I'm sure it happened to his brother. It's pretty bad, isn't it? Nothing can outrun these flames. They're too fast. 70 miles an hour, that's ridiculous. I don't know whose house that was. Again, some areas roast, other areas get too much water. You've seen floods like this before. You've seen worse. Now this one obviously is not in the US. You can tell by looking at the people and at the house, but who cares? They're people. Last time I looked, they have 2 eyes, 5 fingers, 1 elbow, 1 head, 1 neck. And if you dig down a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch, red stuff comes out. They're people. I just hope they made it back and didn't get washed out into the middle of the Pacific, and that's it for them. Let's keep going. There's some more effects of hurricanes, tornadoes, and again, this is not all in the U.S., but again, who cares? They're people. Hope you can see it, but you've seen pictures like this before. These people, it looks like they're watching their house burn down to the ground. Maybe that was their house on the other side. I don't know. It's pretty bad. Anyway, that brings us back to this. Yeah, I think we got it all. Climate change. It's killing the planet. I don't want that to happen. Do you? I don't think so. If you don't, then help me do this, because I know how to stop it. You know, the reason it's happening is because we're trying to make power. We need power to work these lights, to work your lights, to go shopping, gas for your cars, etc. The list goes on. There's a lot of other ways to make power. It doesn't have to be from digging up all this junk that's been under the ground, buried in the dirt and the rocks for 500 million years. It's not necessary. That's ridiculous. It's inefficient. It was invented in the 1850s. This is not even the 1950s anymore. We're reasonably close to the 2050s at this point. Supposed to be high tech, remember? So what's some other ways? Solar power, you know that. A lot of you have solar panels on the roof of your house. I can't afford it. We have to do that a heck of a lot more. Now along the coastlines, there's always a big difference between the temperature of the water, the ocean, and the ground, the land. That's why it's so windy at the beach. That's the place to line the coastline with wind turbines. Offshore, onshore, whatever. We have to do a heck of a... all this stuff is being done already, but it's not happening fast enough. We have 10, 12 years, remember? We have to push this stuff through. That's another way to make power. What's another way to make power? There's other countries in the world, especially Europe, where they're making, they already have them, they work. Might not be 100% perfected, but they're pretty good. They're wave machines. Up and down vertical motion of the waves, mechanical motion gets turned into electric power. They work. We have to line the coastlines with those too. And, a wave, I don't feel too much. Do that in your bathtub next time, or in your pool, or when you're at the beach. Try pushing your hand under the water. You feel it. It's a little heavy. Why? Because water is heavier, it's more dense than air. That means it has more power in it. So a breeze blowing at 50 miles an hour against a wind turbine has a heck of a lot less power than a wave moving at 50 miles an hour. That has a lot more power in it. And the waves never stop. Even at night, they're always moving. So that's another way to make power. There's geothermal power. We've been doing that to some degree. Again, we have to increase it. In the interior of the U.S., where there's some areas where maybe the sun doesn't shine enough, it's not efficient enough, it's not near the coastline, we can't use wave machines, we can't use wind turbines, then we use nuclear power. Nuclear power isn't perfect, but we have a lot of nuclear plants, other countries do too. They work. Temporarily, until we get this stupid thing under control, it's good enough. Let's use some nuclear power plants when we have to. So it's totally unnecessary to dig up all this junk out of the ground. It's just so stupid, it's primitive, it's barbaric, and it kills people. Last one, I promise. Okay, we can't stop climate change. The scientists already said it's too late. And these guys are not like that dude guy looking out the dome in the window. These are pretty smart guys all over the world. Every country on the planet has signed the Paris Climate Accord, except for a couple of countries. We don't care about them. They're small anyway. And again, they said we only have 10, 12 years to make drastic changes. Now, President Trump, again, the election's in 2020. Everybody knows that. It sounds like it's around the corner, but it's not. It's in November. It's at the end of 2020. And the new president doesn't take over every term until January 20th, the following January 20th. So we're talking the new president can't even walk through the door until January 20th, 2021. That's 2 years from now. That knocks this down from 10 to 12 to 8 to 10. And who knows if the scientists got it that exact. I hope they did. Let's hope they did. We don't know. Another reason to push this AFAP, not ASAP, as fast as possible. Because we don't know how much time we have left. We can't waste any. Again, only the president can push something this extreme through, and fast enough, and Trump is not going to do it. He's actually making it worse. He's making it worse in two ways. One, by not doing anything about it. And number two, he's eliminated some of the pollution laws that have been in place for years and even decades. He's opening up giant areas of the land and oceans for oil companies, his big friends, to do more drilling and make more oil and make it worse. Anyway, there's a lot of other politicians going to be running too. They're all going to be jumping on the bandwagon about climate change. They had their chance. These people have been in power for years, some of them for decades. They could have at least made a dent in this. They haven't done much, or we wouldn't be talking about all this stuff right now, everybody is. So please don't trust them, don't believe them. Some of them are nice people. I voted for them, but I can do it faster than them because I haven't been involved in politics. I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm not even an independent, I'm a nothing. But I know how to do this. But that also means I don't owe anybody anything. Nobody owes me anything, and I'm going to keep it that way. So please trust me over these guys. They had their chance, they blew it. And it's almost time to blow it for all of us. We can't wait anymore. Like I said, I understand how to work this stuff, and the other thing is, I know how to get it through Congress. I have a whole website about my plans. Climate change is only one of them. But again, having zillions of ideas doesn't help much if you can't push it through Congress. You know, here's the problem. There's always an approximate number, equal number, of Democrats on the left and liberals pulling that way, and Republicans and conservatives on the right pulling that way. Nothing gets done because it's an equal pull, approximately. Once in a while, there's a few more of this or a few more of that. They change a couple laws. Does it change your life? No. Hasn't changed mine either, because they're little tiny stupid changes. Very rarely, usually, nothing gets done. That's that stalemate that I was talking about, gridlock. I know how to get through Congress. Trust me, I know it goes back to the Constitution. If you look at the summary version or the detailed version on my website, Section 4 talks about that. I'm going to make another video just about that, but this is more important right now. And again, I'll be working with other countries to make this work because they all want to do it, but we're the leader. If we're not going to do much, how much can they do? Now, that same method that I was just talking about to get things through Congress, I can use that to fix all the normal things that everybody's always talking about too. Infrastructure and racism and jobs and student debt, all that stuff. It's the same method of getting it through Congress, is climate change. Now, in general, again, getting off the topic of climate change is quick because the president has to do a lot more things than just climate change, of course, even though it's number one priority. Your opinion is what counts. What you think, what you need is what counts. Not what I think, not what Congress thinks. This is supposed to be for you. Government was designed in 1776. We the people, remember? It's supposed to be for us. I don't care about money or power. You know, Trump, all he cares about is bragging and showing off and making as much money as he can. I don't care about any of that. Money is a tool. It was invented to help people. Anyway, please pass the word because, again, if we don't get this thing going and this doesn't actually happen, goodbye planet. What can I tell you? So I thank you, our animal friends, plant friends, thank you too. I think the kids will too. This is the website to take a look at. Now, if we don't solve this problem, actually, let me talk about one more thing real quick. I forgot. There's another planet. It's called Venus. I think you heard of it. A lot of scientists call it the sister planet of the Earth. Why? It's about the same size, the diameter. It's about the same mass, about the same gravity. It has a rocky surface, dirt, you could walk on it. It has a thick atmosphere. It's a little bit closer to the sun than we are, but not too much. There's one big difference. It's 900 degrees there. Why? Guess what? The atmosphere is made of 90% carbon dioxide. Here it's a much smaller percentage. It's supposed to be extremely small. Just enough for plants. They breathe that in, as you know. But we're making it a lot more. It's nothing like Venus yet, but it could get there. So that's a really good example of what could happen to the Earth. Just take a look at Venus. And Venus is not that hot because it's a little bit closer to the sun. Because guess what? Mercury is even closer to the sun, but Venus is hotter than Mercury because of, again, carbon dioxide raising the temperature. The heat can't get out. That's how it works. I have two more things to show you real quick. Sorry it took so long. One is audio, the other is visual. Let's do the audio first. So you're just going to see this. I'm going to walk over here and make a little sound for you. If it's not going to be too little, you'll hear it. What the heck was that? Well, it's a simulation again. It's a demo. That was the sound of the Earth's ecosystem falling apart. Why? This house has the foundation, right? Your house has the foundation. Most buildings have foundations. If you're banging the heck and chipping away at the foundation for 150 years, what the heck do you think is going to happen? The whole thing comes crashing down. It's going to take longer than that, but it's already starting to weaken. The pieces are falling apart because we're knocking pieces out of the foundation of the Earth's ecosystem. We don't ever want to hear that sound for real, do we? If we do, game over. I'll be making more videos, I hope. And if this doesn't happen again, then I'll just sit back and put up my feet and watch the planet slowly die, just like you guys will. Let's hope that doesn't happen, okay? Thanks. Please pass the word.